So I'm very pleased to introduce one of our colleagues at the university. Jang Wook Huh is assistant professor of American Ethnic Studies at UW at the University of Washington. He earned his PhD in English and comparative literature at Columbia University. He is currently completing a manuscript, a book manuscript on the literary connections between Black liberation struggles in the US and anti-colonial movements in Korea with the support of the National Endowment of the Humanities. Jang, thank you so much for joining us, and the mic is now yours.
Hello, everyone. I'd thank you for your introduction, Tony, and then I'd like to also thank Tony and Sunila for organizing this event. And then I really want to echo what Jessica and Saad said. Yeah, they're wonderful tips. I'd like to share my screen. Let's see. I have 4 slides, and then let me also time myself. So for the next 9.5 minutes, I'm going to talk about 3 general things that are related to grant proposal in general, and then 3 specific things that are directly related to the IDRF. So the first thing is self-study. So, like a fellowship application is a genre. So it's different from journal article, it's different from seminar paper. So read some samples or examples, and then study them, and then think about think about how people make an argument and then develop their make their compelling point. And so I'd like to recommend 2 websites. I know it's okay. I don't know why it doesn't work. Okay. So just Google ACLS completion fellowship, or just ACLS fellowship, and then you're going to apply Mellon ACLS dissertation completion fellowship later. But just Google it, and then here you can see writing proposal ACLS fellowship competitions, and it's only short, 6-page long, tips, but it's very useful. It's a little bit outdated, and then some information might not be relevant to IDRF, but still it's very, very useful. So check it out. And then, oh, Jang, you'd said study some samples. I don't want to say that models, but also, okay, I don't know. Google NEH fellowship, just Google it. And then the first result and first, web page, you can actually see sample application narratives. And then all of these are written by professors, not graduate students, but you can get a sense of what fellowship applications are. And that all these, fellowships are from, scholars from Asian studies, comparative literature, Middle Eastern studies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So read them and then study them. And then there is no single rule for fellowship application. So, trust your judgment, but self-study is really, really important. And then the second point is, so we know that we have to write fellowship applications in layman's terms. What do you mean? So to remember what I mean, an intelligent high school student can understand what you're trying to say. If, like a very smart high school student can understand, grasp the basic idea of what you're trying to say, I would say that application is very well written, because again, readers will be scholars in your discipline, but at the same time, not from, not in your disciplines as well. So, and then you don't have to look for a very smart high school student. It could be your parents, it could be your friend who is not in academia. So ask one person or 2 to read your application. And then, people are very perceptive. If you're insecure about certain points, they actually, say something about that. Yeah, trust me. I asked my sister, who's not in academia, to read my application, and I was blown away. Anyway, so ask your, committee members to read your application, but at the same time, ask your friend who is not in your field to read your application. That would be very helpful as well. And then the third thing is historical or social science related facts and claims. I'm a literary scholar, but so all the selection committee members are from all different disciplines, but the dominant fields are history, social science, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for some people, they don't understand the organization of your dissertation because, okay, it's not chronological. So what are the logics of this, structure, et cetera. So I'll give you just one example. I don't know why it doesn't work. Okay, you can see this. So it's just the beginning of, let's say it's just the beginning of the application. And in July 1933, in a cabin of the steamer, leaving the harbor of Yokohama and bound for Hawaii, Langston Hughes began reading a bundle of newspapers that he had purchased in Japan. The second one is, you can see the difference between the first sentence and the second sentence, because the second one, it's concise. So I'm using this example for several reasons. The first one is be concise. We don't need the information July, right? So get rid of July, and then we don't need the name of the steamer, right? But the most important thing is here, Langston Hughes, 1902 to 1967, right? So even though the selection committee members have never read Langston Hughes, if you put birth date and death date, then okay, maybe Langston Hughes was pretty active in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, etc. So so include some historical markers that would be very helpful. And then I can go back to this slide if I have more time, but let me go back to the specific things. It's okay, 5 minutes. Let me use this. Okay, current slide. They really want to know whether or not you really need to be there, right? So instead of saying that I'm going to stay in South Korea for X month, instead of saying that, I'm going to conduct archival research at certain institution in South Korea for X month, instead of saying that, I'm going to read ABCDE at ABCDE institutions in South Korea for X month. Be as specific as possible, and saying that all of these documents are not available on microfilm. All of these documents have not been digitized, which means that I have to go there and then conduct research. So be as specific as possible, and then persuade them into thinking that you really need to be there. And then qualifications as well. People say that you remember that they fund people as well as projects. So tell them you are the best person, you're the right person to undertake this research. So you say that you are trained in my case, African American studies and Asian Pacific studies, etc. I speak, English, Japanese, and Korean languages, etc., etc., etc. And then tell them why you are the right person to, to this project. Then lastly, fellowship period. They don't distinguish between 6-month, application and 12 months application. So I would say the longer the better. I made a mistake. I applied to this fellowship 10 years ago, long time ago, and then I read all the, guideline again. But I made a mistake. I asked for 9 months or 10 months, but later I learned that they don't care. They just, assess your application based on the originality and significance of your project, not the duration of your fellowship period. So you want to maximize the support. So I would say the longer the better. And then if you happen to receive 2 different fellowships, SSRC-IDRF, it's flexible. So you don't have to decline one fellowship over the other. So there is a way to keep 2 fellowships. And then I have about one more minute. So let me go back to the last slide, and then so this is the beginning of, I don't have the SSRC-IDRF fellowship anymore because I applied long time ago, and then my laptop crashed. So this is kind of like a similar to what I wrote. So I started my application with an anecdote. So in 1933, Langston Hughes went to Japan, South Korea, and then he drew a parallel between the racialization of African Americans under Jim Crow rule and that of Koreans under Japanese colonial rule here. taking this analogy as a point of inspiration, my project examines the political connections between Black liberation struggles and anti-colonial movements in Korea that resisted Japanese colonization and US military intervention. So I want to say that it's an example, not as a model. So some people might say that do not start your application with an anecdote. And then some people might say that, oh yeah, this anecdote, it's so compelling, so memorable. So start with it. So it's totally up to you. Believe your judgments, but it's up to, so think about, so that's what I mean by you have to study all the examples. And then one last point, I'll just, I work with the grad students in English communication and education, and then they are all wonderful. And then I heard great things about you from Tony. And then the last thing that I want you to remember is believe in yourself, enjoy writing this application, and that I wish you the best of luck. I'll stop there. Thank you.